Just tell
Welcome to Envision from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA. Price and Markey here in the studio with Battalion Chief Lance Blakey, Charlottesville native, City of Promise board member, dad, all around dude. The dumb story that I was going to tell was that this is a real dream I had where I woke up kind of panicked because I was like, I had a vivid dream of doing this intro and then playing the Lil Wayne Fireman intro. And I woke up and it was like, I can't believe I did that. And then I was like, well. And then, but it was a whole thing. It was like Jay yelled at me because we didn't get the song cleared. And it like became a whole thing. And then anyway, so I won't do that, but know that I wanted to do that because I like that intro.
And now people can
the
imagine
siren
it,
and
though.
the whole thing. And maybe Jay will stick it in. I don't know. Just saying, not my job. But Lance, thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you for having me.
How's everything going? I haven't seen you in a whole week.
Just been busy. We have a recruit class here at the fire department, so it's just been busy. Just getting them prepared to go.
Yeah, so let's we're gonna obviously talk about your current work and everything, but we'll go backwards to go forward. So tell us a little bit about you. Where you grew up, how you grew up, and we'll trace the path forward.
Okay. Well, born and raised in the city of Charlottesville. Actually, I grew up right down the road, below Washington Park.
Wow.
Went to city schools.
Here.
Graduated, went to Piedmont Community College, and then I transferred down to East Tennessee State University, where I got my 4-year degree. And then I navigated back here to Charlottesville, worked at ACAC for a little bit, couple years. And then one of my high school classmates came in one day, and he was dressed in his dress blues, and he was looking really nice. And I was like, hey.
What do you do?
What are you doing? And he said, I'm a firefighter for the city. I was like, oh, man. He said, we're hiring. You should apply. And I applied, and I was hired out of 300 people.
Oh, what?
Oh, yes.
It was a 300-person hiring?
Yes, 300 people.
What?
I think it was 4 of us.
What? What was that process like?
Yeah,
So-
how do you become a firefighter?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? I never knew myself that I was going to be a firefighter. My friends tell me that I used to drive past the fire station when we were going to school, and I was calling out the engine numbers.
Oh, wow.
So
Really?
they say, we knew you were going to be a firefighter. I was like, okay.
Foresight is crazy.
I never thought that. But the process was different during those times. I got hired in 2005.
Uh-huh.
And we just did a written test. We did a physical agility test. It wasn't really in depth. I think I just climbed the ladder truck, came back down. I remember going to Crescent Halls and running those stairs.
Yeah, sure.
Wasn't really in depth. Did a polygraph and things of that nature. Now it's a little bit more involved. We do a full physical agility test. We do a written test. And we do a series of interviews as well.
What would you think you would be doing? Like, what were the other options?
Well, my other option, I went to school to be I wanted to be an athletic director, and that was my path. I went to ACAC.
Same.
You did?
I did want to be an athletic director when I was growing up.
What?
Yes. I was playing sports. I thought that it would be so cool. And our athletic director was like so chill. I was like, that's the job I want.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know.
Everybody the athletic director in my small town, like sports is
sure.
all.
Yeah.
He is king.
He's the guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I went to ACAC, get that sports kind of background, got an internship.
Okay.
And then my friend changed that, which I'm glad he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to be Carla Williams.
Yeah. Look, there are much worse people to be. I'll tell you
I
what.
was trying to be her. However she got there.
Yeah.
The top one.
Listen, the top dog. That's so when you so you go to Piedmont and you leave, how'd you select what sent you out where is East Tennessee State in the very long state of Tennessee?
It's a long drive down Interstate 81.
Yeah, is it you just drive straight for
4 hours straight? It's the most boring ride, but it's beautiful because you get to see the mountains.
Okay, sure.
But it's a really boring drive.
Yeah. And how'd you? I mean, I love asking this question for people who go out of state because I think I went 2 hours away. You didn't even make it.
I didn't make it an hour away.
Yeah,
so
you didn't make it, right? So what sent you? Outside. I mean, Virginia has a ton of schools and a ton of quality schools, right? What was the draw of East Tennessee State?
I was chasing a dream. I was a really good football player in high school.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
And
You played at CHS?
I played at CHS. I was an all-state linebacker.
Okay.
And I was chasing a dream. And I didn't have the grades when I was in high school. Not that I couldn't do it. I just didn't have that that backing, I would say, just to propel me.
Yeah.
My senior year, it hit me that I can get a full scholarship. I started studying a little bit, had a 3.2 my senior year, but it just wasn't enough to catch me back up. So I went to Piedmont Community College, and I was talking to some schools. East Tennessee State was one of the ones that was looking at me.
Yeah.
And that's what sent me down that way.
You buried the lead on that one.
Yeah.
So you played football there?
Played football for a couple of years. Things didn't work out. They ended up dropping that program maybe in 2000. I may be off a year, maybe 2001, 2002.
Okay.
And they just got their football program back.
Sports is hard. Like, it costs lots of money. You need an endowment to have a football
it's an
team.
expensive enterprise, for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Interesting. How did I not know that?
Yeah.
I did not know that. That's awesome.
Bringing things out through the interview.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You lock them in and cut them out. You can't escape. We got to ask all the tough questions. So this is, you said you started in 2005 at the fire. So what is the I don't really know. Like, how does a fire department work?
Are there
like,
between entry fireman and battalion chief?
Yeah,
like, did
so
you work 20 years and like, well, you're gonna do your 20 and then we're gonna give you you're gonna be the what's the steps in between being a firefighter and being at the top? Like,
well, to start out, right, you don't have to have any experience at all, and that's one of the big misconceptions.
Okay.
Being a firefighter, you have to have
right.
experience.
What experience would you have, could you possibly have?
Right.
Running,
unless you
good
live
breathing.
in a rural county, right?
Yeah. Reformed arsonist. Yeah, like, right.
Oh, my gosh. Or your
I'm
father
ashamed.
or grandfather was a volunteer firefighter. You wouldn't
Oh,
normally
that's
have
true. That's true.
that experience.
Right.
So we don't have, you don't have to have any experience at all, right? And we try to get this out to the community that this is an opportunity that you can have and make good money.
Yeah.
Roughly 50,000 plus.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we try to
really
get that information out. So no, you don't have to have a high school diploma. You have to have a valid driver's license, sign a no tobacco contract.
Sure.
And you can apply and get a job and serve your community. So we provide on-the-job training for you.
Sure.
Of course. You have to get your EMT certification, which is about 3 months.
Okay.
Our firefighter recruits just finished that process, and now they're transitioning into their fire training.
Okay.
So how long are you on the job before you're going to fires?
Yeah.
Roughly 6 months.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
How many how many folks work at the fire station?
Roughly 123, and that's mixed in with
Wow.
with staff people as well.
I don't know what I thought the number was, but I didn't know it was that big. And what's the breakdown? I mean, is it how many folks are is it often a career thing? Do you find it to be more transient? Are you the exception or the rule?
Right. So it's interesting that you talk about that, right? So we're having this paradigm shift where when I came in, you will work your whole career at the fire service.
That's right.
In the fire service and don't leave. And now with the new generation coming in, we're finding that they're only staying maybe 3 to 5 years, and they may or may not leave the fire service, but they may go to a different department. So that's
interesting.
That's one of the things that we're a challenge that we're having right now.
Right, because it's obviously more expensive and harder to hire and train a bunch of new people all the time, right?
Right.
That's interesting. Okay, so let's talk about your path a little bit. So you start in 2005, you go through all your training. Do you have a memory of your first, I don't know what you call it, but your first live, you're
Fire?
out there and you're going?
Well, so I'll tell you this, and this is a tough story, but 70% of what we do is EMS. And I remember,
yeah, right.
I'll try to not say too many things on air, but I had a major incident that we ran. It was a car accident, and people passed away in this car accident. So that was one of the most memorable things that I've gone through. It was a really tough situation because I've never seen people in that way.
Sure.
Yeah. So that was really tough for me.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, and I think that a lot of the conceptions, about everything, right, is sort of like popularized misconceptions of, everybody wants to be a lawyer because you just watch someone really testifying in court, except 90% of lawyering is just like reading paperwork. Terribly dense stuff, right? You're not performing and you're not like opining, and we just all watched pick any lawyer. We saw a couple Jesse Jackson clips and went crazy. I think the fire service is sort of the same. I think the popular misconception is it's always like we're in there and then the alarm goes off, we're in the truck, we're out there. It's, but you make an interesting point that you said 70%, over 70%
I didn't know that.
is EMS.
All EMS.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
And it's actually 2% is actual fires.
2%
is actual fires.
Like 2%
like real fires.
And that's what we see.
What?
And that's making up 80% of the media.
At least
90% of the media.
So how do you square that circle just from a standpoint of people who are like, okay, cool, like this is great, and it's like there's all this action, or this is what I love, and you're like, well, actually, most of the job is X. The other, makes up the other 18% is Y. The 2% is what you thought most of it was. Do you find that when people are like, what in the, I didn't know that this is what I would be doing?
Yeah, and actually, I think it deals with, I think we have in the fire service in general, we have a marketing issue.
Sure.
And the media doesn't help, right? And especially, in TV shows and things like that.
Right.
We did have some recruits come in, and that's what they thought they were going to be doing. Like, we're the Charlottesville Fire
Why
Department,
is everything
right?
not on fire? Yeah, right.
And so one of my jobs when I got into professional standards is to reinvent our marketing. So I started changing our website,
sure,
including that EMS. We even have EMS statistics on our website. And also I created a new brochure that also incorporates EMS. So people, when they get here, they have this thought in their mind that they're going to be putting out fires all day.
Right. Right. Right.
When you have young people coming into these recruiting classes and you're talking to them, what is the first thing that you say to them about the job that is the most important thing that everyone needs to hear when they want to get on this career path, or that you wish someone had told you when you got on this career path?
Well, when I became a firefighter, I didn't know anything about the profession at all, right? This is kind of funny, but, I went to church. I'm like, well, just to let you know, I go to church on Sunday, so that's a big thing.
Amen.
Can
I testify?
Yeah.
Can I be off?
That's right.
And I'm like, they were like, no, we are like on demand. We work 365 days a year. We have 3 shifts. We work 24-hour shifts. So you have to be at work, right? You're a community servant.
Yeah.
You are an essential employee of the city of Charlottesville, so you have to be there. I'm like, oh, okay. So we try to get as much information we can to the recruits so they're not caught off guard when they get there.
Yeah.
So we talk to them about our schedule, so that's really important, right? We work 24-hour shifts. Sometimes you can be held for overtime, which can also cause an issue if you have children at home or if you have any other events that you need to go through. So that's some of the things that we really promote when we're in recruit class, and even prior to that on our website and things like that, overtime, and also our retirement as well.
The talk a little bit about the what is the professional standards division, and tell us a little bit about what that is, and then your position as the chief of the division.
Yeah, so I got promoted 2 years ago, and the professional standards division, as a chief, I oversee two training captains, and they provide the training for the city of Charlottesville. Okay. So that's fire training. We also have an EMS division.
Okay.
My job particularly, I am doing the hiring. I'm doing all the recruiting. I'm also doing professional development. I'm also doing promotional processes. So a lot of the administrative work that I'm doing.
Okay. And that was you said 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
So how much of your job, if we take that pie again, has changed from, are you moving in that direction of like I was a heavy doer and now I'm more of a facilitator, I'm doing more admin work? When you saw yourself early Lance, 05, okay, in the fire service, is this where you thought you would be? Is it are you left? Are you right? You know, I mean, what if you try and reflect on yourself, what is almost 20 years ago now? Like, what does that look like for you?
I never thought I would be in the position that I am at now, and that was because I never saw myself reflected in this position.
Sure.
There were no African Americans that were over the position of captain.
Okay.
So I never even this was never even a thought.
Yeah. And what does that mean to you as a professional? As I mean, you've got kids, right? So as a dad, I mean, how does that affect the way that you do your job, or does it? Right? Or you mean, are you? Because I've heard this in two bites from a lot of different people. Some people are like, look, it's just that I just do the job, and some people are like, yeah, I'm hyper conscious of the fact that you're a first, or you are a first, and also I would assume nationwide, probably one of a very small number.
Right.
Is that a real thing? Is there do you guys know each other? Is there like a bat signal where you're like, yep?
So I believe people in my position are very hyper aware of the others.
Okay.
And I actually search for them.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a part of the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters. So I'm seeing these stories of people being the first all the time, and these people are very important in my life because we're a small minority.
Yeah.
And we need to help each other.
Right? That's right.
It's not an easy step being the first at all.
Yeah.
When I became the first, it was really tough. And I'm thinking back, and I'm no Martin Luther King or anything.
Sure.
like that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, wow, like this is what it's like to be the first.
Yeah.
It's really tough. You're stepping into a new role, but you also have in the back of your mind that there were people that came before me that didn't get this opportunity.
Sure.
And so I had a tough time transitioning into that.
Tell us a little bit, talk a little bit more about that, because I'm interested in how did that manifest itself? Was it imposter syndrome? Was it just like, I don't want to blow this because, I'm going to blow it for everybody? What was, how do you work in that zeitgeist again? And when is that? What year is that? 2022. So
it's also hard to be the first in 2022.
Right.
Like, I didn't know there were still things. I didn't know there were still things, and there were still heights.
There's still first to be firsted. Yeah.
So I'm the first Black or African American battalion chief in 166 years.
That's crazy. That's a very long time.
That is a very long time.
And you guys are bringing out some good discussions, right? And it also helps me talking about this. When I first was promoted, it was really tough, right? So all these voices started coming back in my head, and I was hearing the retirees now, and they were talking about, for our African Americans that were on the department, they were like, "Hey, we want to see you riding in that battalion chief car."
Yeah.
When we retire.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
Right.
Even for people who long since retired, looking back and saying, I knew someone was going to do it. It wasn't going to be me.
Sure.
But if we kept on kicking and
You've
kept
said
on,
this before.
Yes.
You said this a couple
we
times.
stand on the shoulders of the people before us, even if they didn't reach the heights that we're reaching.
Yeah.
And when I got the call that I was promoted, I was immediately excited.
Yeah.
But then it went.
Yeah, sure. It's heavy, right? It's heavy. Yeah.
It actually hit me. I was at Costco. I got the call, and I went in my car. I think I called my mom. I called my wife, and then it hit me.
Yeah.
And I'm just being vulnerable here.
Yeah.
I broke down.
Sure.
Because I heard those retirees. Saying, I remember those conversations we had, and they just didn't get that opportunity. And I've talked to some of them, and I'm like, why didn't you apply for the promotion? And they just said, like, we knew that we wouldn't have the opportunity,
and they hadn't seen anybody like them.
No,
that's what representation is so important.
And they wouldn't get that. They knew that. They wouldn't get that opportunity.
Yeah.
And then I look at how many people that were here that I knew that they were capable of doing this position.
That's right.
But just never, they just timed out. Right?
Yeah, sure.
So it was just really tough.
Yeah. And what was if you recall, what was the response to that either internally and externally? Was it mostly excitement? Was there some side eye? Like what how did people understand or feel not the same gravity that you felt, because it was professional but also largely personal to you, but did people recognize like that it was sort of a watershed moment, or for everyone else was kind of like, all right, cool, like we like that guy, let's keep going?
Well, I think I got a lot of support from my community. When I went out into the community, I was bombarded, right? Every time I went out, I went to a community event. They were like, "Lance, thank you." Thank you for what?
Right.
Right. Like,
Well, when I found out, I was like, "Thank you."
You're welcome.
Like,
for what?
I don't do fires, but this is important to me.
And then I had people come up, it's like, "Hey, we appreciate your work." Right?
Yeah.
And they get it. They understand what it means. Like that moment means.
Yeah.
Right? And so this went on for months, and
Really?
and it actually helped me. It really helped me, and I understood my position and why I'm here today, right?
Yeah.
I'm here for the community, and they see themselves represented, right? And so
Sure.
it was really important.
Yeah.
Do they take racial demographics of fire departments? Like, are there racial demographics, or
Yeah,
what are the percentages?
Right now we have
Gender too. I was also thinking about the gender of
absolutely.
firefighters.
Right now we have under 20 African Americans. We have 9 women that work for us, and we have actually more than that. That's just the firefighter EMTs.
Yeah.
Firefighter EMTs. So we are actually in a good place.
Yeah.
We're in a good place.
Yeah. If you were just jumping in, this is Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise, News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WNA. Price, Markey, and Lance Blakey here in the studio. So you grew up here, went to Piedmont, went to Tennessee, came back. Did you think you would be here? Like, was when you came back, right? Were you like, all right, cool, like this is home for me. I want this to now be where the roots are. Because and we've talked about this, that I feel like Charlottesvillians come in sort of two forms. Either like, this place is boring, I'm out.
I gotta get going.
Right. Or kind of like, all right, cool, I like it here, and I can carve out a niche here and sort of grow in town. Do you remember if which camp you fell in? Like, were you someone who was like, all right, this job's fine, but ultimately I'm out, right? Or were you committed to being here?
Right. So when I came back, it was about 2003, and I got the job at the fire department in 2005. I was living at home with my mom, and my family is here.
Sure.
So I had that family connection.
Yeah.
So I don't even think I had in my mind that I was going to leave.
Okay.
I don't think I even thought about that at the time, because I just had all that connection, right?
Yeah.
My family's here. And then I met my wife during that same time, and she was living here. She's not from here, but she was living here. And I think I never had that thought in my mind that I was going to leave at all, just because of this close connection to family and the community.
Yeah. What about you? You stayed tight.
I never ever wanted to leave.
Really?
And as
not even after school? Like, not even when you graduated, you weren't like, all right, I'm going to...
No.
Really?
Everybody was like, why are you going to school? I went to UVA.
Okay.
So close to home.
Sure.
I said, because I don't want to go.
Right. I know the rules of the game. I'm good.
As Dream Girl said, I'm not going nowhere. And I think it was about the family.
Right.
I was like, anything I could do in California, I could do here.
Sure.
They got lots of fires out there, and here we are. It's just, for me, the family aspect. And that was even after you come to school, people come to UVA from California, from New York, from Florida, and then they come and like, I was just trying to get away from my family, from their perspective. And then I graduated and they left. I'm like, gosh, they were my chosen family at school for so long, and now they're gone. I was like, but that will never amount to the things that I have here, the connections that I built here. I'm living here. The school was here. I'm an alumni. I just can't. That was so important to me.
Huh.
And I was like, you know what? All I got to do is find a job now. If I could just find something to do, get to work, and stay here, life is made.
Really?
Yes, it's crazy.
That's so interesting.
It is so crazy, but...
I lived in Turkey. I got as far away as almost humanly
You
possible.
see, but Price seems like the person who was in the campus, I got to get out of here. But even the people who fall in that camp originally come back and kind of like, 3 years, I'm going.
Yeah, sure. I was never.
I
I don't think I was ever I have to leave, but I think I was in the if I'm gonna stay, I need to leave to stay. I was in that.
Yeah.
If I think what I, if I'm trying to think about this is a place I could be as an adult, I need to fill this time with doing the stuff.
You need to go see
and so that's
stuff.
that was my time where I went overseas and did all that. But I think you're right. And as I think about it, it's like, I mean, look, I didn't stray too far from anything. We built a house a mile from our parents. I married the girl I went to homecoming with.
Right.
Like, I order the same thing at Boda's every day. I'm not. I didn't
Hometown
invent,
hero.
right? But I think part of the appeal, at least, was similarly that families here. All of the reasons that I think as young people we were like, oh, it's slow, it's boring. I'm like, this is great.
This is great.
That's perfect. So you in thinking about your family's still here,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so you're still obviously closely connected with them. What did your folks do when you were growing up? Like what was the world like for you in Charlesville as a kid?
It was tough. I grew up in a underserved community right below Washington Park. It was tough growing up. I had some good friends, and most of my friends are now either incarcerated. I had one kid, one of my friends that was shot and killed. But it was tough. My mom did the best that she can do with what she had.
Mm-hmm.
I never went without a meal.
Right.
But I wouldn't change anything about that experience at all.
Huh.
Because I think it made me who I am today. So
Sure.
some of the experiences that I go through, like, it doesn't really faze me because I'm like, I've been through worse. Like, this is like, it's still tough,
Yeah.
but I've been through worse.
Yeah.
So I know I can get through this. This is
Yeah.
like, it's not that hard, right?
Yeah.
What did your family say when you told them that you were going to be a firefighter?
They-
That's one of those things that's like, oh, I don't know if I want my son or nephew in the fire department.
I think they were really excited. My aunt Paula, I talked to her about it, and she was like, "Hey, go ahead and do it." It was, you want that family support when any type of decision that you make, and it was really supportive. And when I got the job, my family was so excited; they were so happy. It was a really proud moment.
What has been this is a two-part question, your biggest success, but also your biggest challenge, and now I mean you're you're leading the division, and that's like you talked about, that's heavy from a interpersonal standpoint and from an emotional standpoint, but I expect also from just an actual tactical doing the job standpoint, right? I think it's there's a way to do a difficult job, and then you have the added layer of kind of the sociocultural piece of it too. But I'm sure you've had some big wins in there. So what have been some of your memorable moments? But also, like, what's the thing that you're like, man, I didn't expect that to be quite as complicated as it was?
I think since I'm in this position of professional standards recruitment of our local community, I think that's when I was assessing the recruitment. I call it like my pie, right?
Sure.
And it's a small sliver that we are not really capturing, and
Okay.
it's just the local community.
Is that right?
We're getting people from the outside, and we do get people from that live here in Charlottesville. But I would like to see more.
Sure.
Right, and you would think we would get more. So what I've done with that is that once I identified that, I started recruiting at Charlottesville High School.
That's
so
what I was going to say. They got like an Army recruit officer was at our high school every day.
Yeah,
Every
I didn't
day.
go.
Those
I
dudes
don't
are
remember walking.
relentless.
Every day.
I don't
Yeah.
remember going through a high school like lunch period without seeing like an Army recruiter.
Yeah.
I was like, that's
Yeah,
what you.
they're-
If you're
they're
trying
relentless.
to get employees, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
there
yeah,
every
yeah.
day. And actually, I reached out to the principal at the time, and he was like, "Sure, absolutely, come on in. The Army is there every day."
Yeah,
you,
that's right.
you want to sit your table right up
Yes,
next to
and
him.
that's
That's right.
exactly what
Yeah.
he told me at the time. And so what I did with that, I started this recruitment campaign at the high school.
Okay.
And we get in there every month.
Yeah.
We didn't start this month, but we'll start next month. Every other month, just giving those little gentle touches to the students,
Sure.
letting them know that, hey, here's an opportunity for you
Yeah.
to make $50,000 plus out of high school
Yeah.
with no experience.
Yeah.
And I wish at the time that I had that opportunity to know about careers in the city that I can do. Maybe
yeah, that'd have been so helpful for so many people.
yeah, maybe people don't want to go to college. We know people.
Yes.
Some people don't go to college. I'm a part of the Charlottesville Technical Education board
Okay.
here in Charlottesville, and I'm learning so much information about our youth in the city schools. And like I think the number was 600. I might be off by a little bit, but 600 go into the workforce. I'm like, okay, how can we capture that?
600?
600. I think that's a number for all the schools, not
Like
just
in the Charlottesville.
not just for
I was like, wow.
not for the city,
Okay.
not for Charlottesville.
I'm sure that's like everybody
What
here.
you guys
That's
do? I was
everybody.
like, wow, that's
Yeah, that's
most of mine.
everybody.
Okay. The how does that? I mean, how does this experience color your experiences as dad? And how do you map, or do you map your experiences, your professional instincts onto, you know, the things that you talk about with your kids, about just thinking of, you know, because we have this theory, and all of us went to 4-year universities, like that was the thing. And I think in my house, and I don't know about yours, but that's what you did. Like, yeah, there was no question that I was going to go to college. It was just, that was the setup.
Yep.
Right. And so I wonder, but the point is well taken, and we all know now that that's not necessarily the case for everyone, certainly, and it's not the only path forward. And for some folks, it's obviously economically restricted on a lot of different levels. How does that factor in, though, to someone who has had a successful career, who is in sort of a different setup than you were in as a young person, but you also have this professional experience? It's like, you know, so if they ask, like, hey, Dad, what do we do? What's the advice?
Yeah, so that's it's interesting that you asked that, Price. So my kids are in a good spot, right? So we actually do interviewing skills at home.
Yeah.
Love it.
They they learn interviewing techniques.
Sure.
Right? Just recently, they are learning how to. We do this thing called table topics.
Okay.
So they're actually we do this as a family, kind of like a family thing or family event that we do every week. And we just started this recently. So we just pick a topic, and you have to speak on it for like 2 minutes.
Okay.
And so it really helps with your public speaking as
Yeah.
well, because what's happening, since my kids are in that teenage realm,
That's right.
they're actually interviewing for internships.
Sure.
Right. So I'm like, okay, we have to prepare them, and so these table topics are helping them for these interviews that they do. So both of my kids, well, one of my kids did an internship this summer.
Yeah.
And it was through, oh my gosh, I can't remember the organization at this time. So maybe Star Hill.
Sure.
But these table topics just help them with those questions they may get in the interview. And it's just questions that may be out of the blue, and they're able to answer them.
What was the most recent one?
We just picked just questions. Right?
Okay.
It's just I just Google table topic questions.
Ooh,
And
I'm gonna
it's
give
just
one to Marky. Hold on,
Okay.
keep going.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
just
no.
Google it. Just Google it.
Oh my goodness, this is not good.
365 table topic questions.
There you
right.
go.
Perfect.
Just pick
okay.
one.
Ooh, okay. What is the most sensible thing you've ever heard someone say?
The most sensible thing I have ever heard someone say. I feel like I've heard a lot of sensible things.
And you have to talk for at least 1 minute.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. Most sensible thing I have ever heard someone say. My aunt always says, when you die, you can't take it with you, so live for today.
Okay.
And it's about how saving is great, but like there are things that if you want them, it's best to live your life for now, because we don't know what tomorrow will bring. It's really about, people wait for their retirement, and it's like, now you can't jump off a cliff. Well, I guess you can, or you can't go skydiving, and like do those things when you're young, because you're human and you should have the full range of human experiences while you can, because life is short.
I like this activity.
It's really cool, and I tell you what, and we actually go for 2 minutes. We started.
I wouldn't have made it.
We started at
You
one.
had a tight
They're
40,
good.
You had a tight 40 seconds.
We
That was
started
good.
at 1 and we went to 2.
Yeah.
And it's been a great experience for our family, because it pulls out some of the things I don't know about my kids through these table topics.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
and that's really it's really cool.
Yeah. And your kids are how old are they? I know you got
Twins.
Yeah.
They're 14.
They are twins. That's right. Oh, they're just started high school, right?
Yep. They're sophomores now.
Sophomores.
Sophomores
My
now.
goodness gracious.
And then the other thing that we're doing is building their resumes as
Sure.
well. So that's really been important. So what I try to do, anything that they do, internship or whatever award that they win, hey, add it to your resume.
Yeah.
So we're just working on their resumes.
That's great.
So they're really ahead of the curve.
Did you get them a LinkedIn? I heard
No.
that's big.
For kids?
I just found
We
out.
learned this from our
I had interns that are in high school
Okay.
in Charlottesville. They said that their teacher had helped them set up. I guess maybe it's a career course.
I think
a
so,
LinkedIn,
yeah.
and they have a LinkedIn that they put stuff on. They working at the coffee shop as a barista, and they put it on the LinkedIn. I was like, I didn't know young people needed a LinkedIn.
I did not know that either.
I don't know that they do, but they got them. They're out there.
Wow.
For sure.
No, yeah, it was shocking to me.
That's the
I
next
was like,
step.
what do kids need
That's
to be
right. That's right.
professionally putting on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
But I guess it's like they're using it like as a history of work.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I don't know when they're in their
seniors,
senior
right?
year
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
so that would
yeah.
make them 17 or 18. So maybe that's a
Yep.
little different for 14-year-olds. But like,
My
I didn't have a
resume was pretty
resume.
black.
I was like, I didn't have a resume.
I didn't either.
Worked at Core Brothers on 29.
I'm sitting here trying to think. What were like? I don't remember writing up a resume.
Nope. I worked at Core Brothers. I worked at Play It Again Sports. That's all I have for you. Customer service experience. So with your, well, we talk about this a lot, and then just thinking about the experience of being a parent and just the experience of it. It is sort of one of the most bizarrely like random enterprises, right? You don't learn how to do it. I mean, I have a vivid memory of leaving the hospital and being like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what am I supposed to do with this, right? And so as it pertains to, again, like, your maturation from growing up in Charlottesville to having your own family, I mean, do you often reflect on your experiences as a kid here with the things that you are doing with and for your children, right? And I think the real question, and I think which is particularly interesting for someone with your experience, is like, how do you create and support and mold humans who have the values that we can tell that are important to you, many of which came from your experiences here, but also give them a different layer and a different level of opportunity that you didn't have? Because those things sometimes feel like they're in conflict, right? I think there are some of us who are like, man, we want to give all of this stuff to our kids, but then what we don't do is equip them with any of the tough lessons, right? Which were the ones that you had to learn as a kid because you had restricted opportunity, right? It's like, how do you do that, right? How do you say, look, your mother and I are going to do A, B, C, X, Y, Z and prepare you for da-da-da-da. But is there a voice in the back of your mind that was like, man, like, I don't want them to get out of the nest and not have learned some of the stuff that I had to learn just from being out here?
Yeah, so I think there's a balance, right? And, my kids are blessed. I mean, I couldn't imagine them going through the things or living in the age that I grew up in. And so what I try to do is just find that balance. I try to give them opportunities where they can volunteer, right?
Sure.
And so they can see some of the experience that other people are living.
That's right.
I don't even know how to go into that anymore, but just giving those experiences, like I brought them by the City of Promise.
Yeah.
They've gone to the Dream Builders graduation,
That's
right? And I think that was really impactful on my daughter, just seeing some of the lived experiences that other people go through and the challenges that they may have.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to keep them close to that, just so they know, and just to keep that balance.
Yeah. If you are just jumping in, this is Envision Radio from the United Wave Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA. Price, Markey, Battalion Chief Lance Blakey, and here making the noises.
What does community partnership and community work with the fire departments in Charlottesville look like? What is it that you want to get out into the community and tell the community about your work, not just about recruitment, but
Right.
when you call us, we come, and we want to make sure that you know that this, that, and the other. Like, what does that look like for you when you're working with the community?
Yeah, I think those community partners or partnerships are really important, right? If you look at our name, it's fire service. We are the fire service, right? And that service that service part is just really important. That's one of the things or community service that I love. I grew up in that community service background, and I grew up in that that service-oriented jobs. I grew up working in the hotel industries through high school and through college. I worked my way through college, and I love giving back. I love connecting with my community. So as in the fire service, I think we have a duty to give back to our communities. And so those community partnerships are really important. Any opportunity that we have to go back and give back in our communities, I think it's really important. And more importantly, I think it builds trust within the community as well, right? You're being there. You're being at community events, right? We just had an event at Beaufort Middle School, the 100 Black Men with 100 cuts, right? Mm-hmm. And that's really important that the community sees us in that. And it shows that, we are important to them.
And I asked that because the 2 times I remember as a child, and I just saw a video that firefighters came into like an elementary school and was doing a thing where like they showed you how you put on the outfit and had them practice with the outfits, and people were talking about how important that is, because if a child is in a fire and a fireman comes in to rescue them, it doesn't seem like a person. Like, we're trying to humanize, and a child needs to see a fighter fire before they see a firefighter saving them in a fire. Like, if you don't know that you can trust me in my suit and what the suit means symbolically for your safety.
Because we look different coming into your house. It may be smoky, and we're in our full turnout gear, and we may not look human.
Yeah, like that's what we were talking about. I was like, that is so important.
So we do get into the communities and in the schools. I just vividly remember some pictures from our firefighters going into, I think it was Greenbrier Elementary School, and the kids were just so excited just to see them, and they're showing them how they get dressed.
I remember that when I was in elementary school.
You can see the looks on their faces. Talking about community partnerships, one of the things that was really important to me is that it's the Girls Fire Camp. Mm-hmm. And that's been a great community partnership that we've done to give these young women opportunities to see what it's like to be firefighters. And that's one of the things that's brought, I think that's one of my career highlights, I would say, because we had 9 young women come through our Girls Fire Camp this last time. This is our 3rd year, and I didn't video, and I'm just so upset that I didn't video their testimonials. But the things that they said and how this camp impacted them and impacted their lives was just so amazing. And they don't know that we may have impacted them, but they impacted me more from their stories and how they've overcome. We had an opportunity. We don't only just teach them fire and EMS. And that's what we did at first. And I had to take a step back. I said, hey, this is bigger than just fire and EMS. Mm-hmm. And what we started to do is to start teaching them leadership skills.
Yes, I love that.
We started reaching out to some community partners. And we also gave them interviewing techniques. One of our, I think the 911 dispatch center couldn't assist that day because they were just busy. And I think there was a conference going on. I was like, okay, what are we going to do in this time frame? I was like, we can teach them interviewing skills. Mm-hmm. And we started that. And that really, they started out really quiet. And then at the end of it, like, they were just blossoming, and they were just ecstatic and sharing their experiences and their goals. And it was just really amazing.
Is it a multiple day camp?
It's a 3-day camp.
Oh, okay.
It's a 3-day camp.
That's cool. That's like, I saw that. I was like, yeah, how are y'all getting girls involved in fire training? I was like, I wish I had that when I was growing up.
So give you some statistics. There's over 1 million firefighters in the United States. Only 9% are female. So that's about 90,000, right? 72,000 of those are volunteer. So actually career...
What?
Yes. So actually career women firefighters are even a small percentage.
Like 20... So it'll be like 20,000.
Yes.
Wow.
Career firefighters.
Wow.
So that's why that girls' camp is
so important. Yeah.
How do you deal in an environment that you've mentioned has become sort of? I think that is a general trend of my generation, and certainly your generation, is people are staying at jobs for shorter periods of time. But I think that level of continuity probably stings more in more service-oriented professions, right? If you're an engineer, whether you go to Amazon or Facebook or what, you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't lose a ton from there because that's not what you're taking with you. You're not taking your code stack with you. That lives with the company. But in a business that is much more intimate and much more relational, what you lose is human capital, right? And it's less about that. You can train other people to do the job, but it's the relational piece that becomes tough. I mean, how do you grapple with that with, I think, a generation, and probably increasingly so, that like that might just be how it goes, right? Like, there are much less folks. I mean, my parents taught for 40 years. Wow. The longest job I've ever had has been 5. Wow. Right? You know, and it's just the mindset's much different. It's, you know, it was never, to your point, I'd never thought about like, wow, I got the job. And then it's, you know, that sort of old joke of that musical How to Succeed with Business, like you became a company person. I think that mindset is degraded almost to dust, particularly for folks who are you know, under 30, right? And so, I mean, how do you think about that, you know, given a lot of what you have said is important is continuity. We want people who are here, who enjoy the work, who enjoy each other, who the community trusts. If that becomes a revolving door, your job gets incrementally harder.
Yeah, so that's another interesting question. I went to a Virginia Fire Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Conference, I believe it was last year, and the U.S. Fire Administrator was there. And she was talking about this thing, right, this thing that we're talking about now, relating to the new firefighters, right, this new generation of firefighters. One, how to train them, right? We can't train them the same way that we've been training the rest, especially in the classroom, because the attention span is less, right? So we can't be giving these lectures that are hour long.
That's right.
We need to, you know, break it down in small increments.
Instagram Reels.
Right, Instagram Reels. And so we are learning, we are adjusting our curriculums, and we're adjusting how to teach them, you know, to this new generation. I think that's one important piece, so they won't lose interest. But I think more importantly, the fire service, we call it a family, and we call it a family because we're there 24 hours at a time.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So we have a close relationship. It's more unique than any other job or profession that you have. And I think going back to that is those relationships, building those close relationships, making sure that your work environment is one that's inclusive, right, and making you feel welcome. We just had a increase in our pay for our firefighters through a collective bargaining agreement, and we are still seeing firefighters leave. So it's not the money, right?
Right.
It's not the money. So we just need to figure out what's the problem, right? Or why are we losing them? And we just need to adapt to the new generation, and this is not just a fire service issue. This is an issue across all companies and all industries. So how do we interact with the new generation, and how to bring them in?
It is certainly an everywhere issue, and it seems. I mean, did you see Amazon recently just had a return to office 5 days a week?
I just saw that.
And that would send me right out the door.
Yeah, they were like, okay, I'm gone.
That would, this is my generation. It would send me right out the door.
Today.
People are losing it,
jobs.
right? Yeah. Well, there was that whole thing too about, you know, the whole joke on the whole Elon Musk Twitter thing was when he bought Twitter and had his return to office thing. Apparently, what people were saying was like other tech companies were just like had their doors open that were like, come on. Like, come on. We know you're leaving. Like, come on.
And I think that's another point that you bring up, Price. Like, we need to adapt, right?
Yeah, yes, I love that.
Right?
Sure.
In the fire service, it's funny to say this, but they don't like how things are now. Yeah. And they don't like change. They don't.
Tradition,
that's a tough place to be.
Tradition is such a deep rut to get out of.
Sure.
And we have to change.
Doing a thing just because we've always done it that way.
And we have to adapt to this new generation. If not, we're going to lose them.
What is your sort of closest competition in the marketplace? Is it other jobs, or is it other, like, like, are people leaving and saying, like, well, I'm going to Albemarle, I'm going to Green, or is it like, I'm out, I'm going to do a different job, right? So, like, what do you look at as your close cousins of, like, oh, that's kind of our lever if we say that, oh, they're doing this, or are they just out entirely? They're like, you know, because teachers
are leaving the profession
entirely.
Right.
They're
like,
like,
I'm not going to be teaching anymore.
I'm not doing this anymore. But I think that's a bigger systems issue, right? You're looking at similar cohorts of people who want to be servants, who love kids, who love the job, who are getting paid in Subway gift cards to do work that they shouldn't be doing in the first place. So they're like, yeah, this whole system's upside down. There's no way inside. There's not a place that's like inside of this system that I would argue is doing it so well that it's overly incentivizing people who really, really, really don't love it. Right? Are you seeing a similar thing where like the entire way we've constructed this thing is sort of a losing proposition? Or do you think there's some levers you can pull as individual departments and services to be like, we can be a little more competitive on the employment front?
So we just increased our pay, right?
Yeah.
So that was looked at as a big incentive.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
So we can
Okay.
be more competitive with the other fire departments, right? So we have a fire department neighbor right next to us, and then we have other entities that are close by. What we're seeing is volunteerism is down,
It's
right?
down.
That's
Okay.
everybody.
And
Yeah.
That's everybody.
Is that right?
right?
Is that right?
That's a
Okay.
natural
Okay.
trend.
And
Okay.
historically, that's where we got most of our firefighter EMTs is through that volunteer portal, right?
Interesting.
And so that's down, and that's almost eliminated, right? We're not seeing that
Interesting.
as much. It's a really small percentage
Huh.
that we're getting for that volunteer pool, right? So we're seeing just regular people in a community that are applying for jobs. You know, I came in with no experience,
Sure.
but that wasn't the norm when I first came in. But now,
Okay.
right? But now we're seeing that as a norm. So we just trying to figure out what, I guess, is the best way to recruit
Sure.
and retain. And that's one of the things that I've seen, that we're getting people from the outside. So let me focus on the local
That's right.
community.
That's right. Yeah.
Get that other slice of the pie that we're missing.
That's right.
And we're seeing other people. You're asking about people, where do they go? We're seeing people. I think in the fire industry, people are maybe swapping departments, right? They're swapping.
Okay.
We're seeing that a lot.
Interesting.
So we do get lateral transfers, and then we're seeing, like, just recently we had somebody go back into the health industry. They're left the fire service, but they're going to the healthcare industry.
Yeah.
So it's a related
Yeah.
field.
I've been thinking about this the entire time. How do you internalize how do you deal with a stressful job? Right? And in a job, I saw a joke the other day that was like, it's crazy to me some people have a job that's literally life or death, and some people have to send an email but don't.
Right.
You know? And we're all represented in the studio.
Right.
But how do you I mean, there is a real nature of your job that is like very, very, very serious. And I would assume that at times is truly life or death for some people. I mean, I think it's very interesting that there is a profession that exists that you can be trained to do that is that serious. Right? And so I just wonder how you think about that, and how you think about that as the leader of this professional stand. I mean, are there things that you're like, yo, like we got to tighten this up, given that we all, there has to be a culture of, sort of confidence and looseness, but ultimately I think it has to be understood that you can't really take a second off, right? You don't get like an oops, I didn't proofread that email, because everything that you're doing has real consequences.
So let's talk about this. This is a really important topic, and it's mental health, right? When I first started in the fire service back in 2005, mental health was not there.
Right.
That wasn't a thing.
Right.
Yeah,
Think about how the community views us as heroes, right?
Mhm.
That's right. That's
And
right.
that
That's
It's a
right.
hard
can-
pedestal to sit on.
We can do, or we can
That's right.
accomplish, or we can overcome anything, right?
Right.
We are the person people calls when everything is bad.
That's right.
When
That's right. Yeah, you don't get a lot of hooray phone calls, do you? Like
Right.
just calling to say things are great.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when people are running out of buildings that are on fire, we're running in.
That's right.
Or if there's a medical emergency, or if there's a shooting or something, people are running away, we're running in.
Yeah.
Mental health was not at the forefront when I first got in. And so that took a detriment on our firefighters, right?
Huh.
And so thank God that now this is something that is really important. Mental health is at the forefront, and we have some organizations that help us with that, right? And then we have some internal, we call it peer support, that help our firefighters through these stressful events, right? We are human, so and you have to have a healthy work-life balance as well, right?
Yeah.
So you're making sure you're exercising, you're taking care of yourself, making sure you're getting that that me time and separating your work and just taking care of yourself as well.
And I mean, how do you do that? And I mean, I find that tough, right? But I can't, the story you told earlier of like you have to respond to this call and it's kind of like it's a gnarly car accident. Like how do you go back to work the next, you know what I'm saying? Like how do you go back to doing that? It seems like one of those things that, what is the process or as you're thinking about recruiting and retaining, I mean, are these things that are kind of rattling around in your head always of like, I know how stressful it is. I know how emotional it can be. Here's how we have to bolster our staff to make sure that they can perform at a high level. But also, like you said, it would be great if they came back.
Yeah, this is a layered response, right? So it's multiple layers to this. So we also have the resources that we have in the fire service, and we have national resources as well. But then your coworkers as well. Those are the people that have gone through the same things. They understand it. They get it. Those are the people that you talk to through the experiences that you've gone through, right? So they get it. They understand it. But family is another layer as well, right? Your family is you have to have that good family network to help you through these things, right? It's a multi-step process. It's really layered.
Sure. Is that something you learned? Is that sort of with age comes wisdom? Like, were you always good at that, or is this been an acquired taste for you?
And I think as far as what?
As far as just you understanding, like, oh man, I'm burnt out, I'm stressed out,
It was learned. I really didn't understand it, right? And I talk about that car accident that I witnessed. It was really pretty bad car accident, and one person perished in that. And so it was really tough. I think it's through education. I think you get that, you learn how to take care of yourself and how to kind of separate that yourself from that work and your career. And it's a learned thing.
Yeah.
You have to learn it over years, right?
Yeah.
I think it's better now that mental health is at the forefront with these new firefighters coming in, because they're getting it right away.
Sure.
Right? In the fire academy, we're bringing mental health professionals in, talking to them, right? We're giving them, EAP, letting them know the resources that they have. And that's something that I didn't have when I came into the fire service. So for me, it was a long period of time before I understood how to take care of myself as far as my mental health and things like that. But now, luckily enough, the fire service has woken up.
Yeah, that's great.
And we're getting these resources to our firefighter EMTs early on.
Yeah.
How important is mentorship to you? Like when you see young firefighters that look like you and, talk a little bit about how mentorship plays a part in the work that you do.
I think that it's really important. When I first came into the fire service, I didn't really have a mentor per se. And so I didn't really know what my career path was going to be. And I kind of navigated into what I did best, right? And that's that community, right? Mm-hmm. That service. So my career path at the beginning was being a fire marshal, working in investigating fires and inspecting buildings, but it also had that community aspect, right? Public fire safety. So I taught a lot of public fire safety and juvenile fire setting, talking to the kids that, happen to set fires. But that mentorship piece, I think, is really important piece, because it will help navigate that new firefighter, which path you want to take, right? So there are multiple paths in the fire service. You can go the fire marshal route. You can become a medic. You can become a person on a truck. We call it the truck, or a tech rescue type person, right? Or you can just stay a firefighter your life. And then you have that professional development piece. Hey, I want to be a company officer. I want to be a battalion chief. I want to be a deputy chief. I want to be a chief. So having that mentorship is really important. And that's some of the things that I try to do. I try to teach the young firefighters things that I wish I would have known early on, right? And I think that's just a really important piece.
What is the you mentioned it. What about you? What's the path? Are you going to be how do you feel about the next 5 years, 8 years? Yeah. Like what's next? And how do you envision that, as it pertains to your own professional development?
Right. So when I first came in, I didn't see myself reflected in those higher levels.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until 2020 when we had our first Black chief come in, I was like, oh, maybe I can
sure.
ascend the ladder, right? And so for myself, I never wanted to become the fire chief. That's just not what my vision was.
Sure.
But because of where I am now, it could be a possibility. It just might be that natural progression, right?
Sure.
And so what I've done is in the last 4 years, I've been going to professional conferences. Through my work in the community, I was able to be selected to be part of the IDELP through the International Association of Fire Chiefs. And what that is the Diversity Executive Leadership Program. I was selected one of 12 people in the country to be a part of this program. So it's an 18-month program. It's a leadership program, but it also, we tackle the issues that are going on in the fire service now, and we try to also foresee the future problems in the fire service as well. So that is a huge accomplishment for me, and it just helps me to kind of foresee the future, right? What's
the art of the possible?
What's that next step now?
Yeah, that's awesome.
If people want to learn more about fire safety, if they want to learn more about becoming a firefighter, their options for becoming a firefighter, being you one day.
Yeah.
What do they have to do, and how do they do it? How do they call? They got to get up there, and do they just come up to the firefighter door and knock on the door and say, "Hi, I'm here. Can I fill out an application?"
You can do that as well. I would tell anybody, if you're interested in, or if you love community service, you love giving back to your community, if you're service oriented, I mean, why not join the fire service, right? It's the most rewarding career there is, right? I mean, you get to ride fire trucks, ambulances, right?
Right.
You get to go down the street with your sirens on, right? And you're there to serve the people that are in need, and especially in your community. In your community. And you make pretty good money, right? Doing what you love.
Icing on the cake.
So it's a couple things you can do. You can always call me at the fire department, 434-970-3240, and they'll connect you with me. You can also go to our website at www.charlottesville.gov/fire, and you can go to our career page. We call it our Join CFD page, and you can learn all the information about becoming a firefighter EMT.
It's a good way to wrap. Big thanks to you, Lance, for hanging out with us. If you have ideas for the show or want to get in touch with us, you can find us on social media at United Way Cville, at City of Promise, and the inbox is open, envision at unitedwaycville.org. We get support on the show from our friends at the United Way, and of course, if you like what you hear, share it with your friends, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. You will get new episodes every week, and of course, best way to support us is if you're feeling generous, time, talent, treasure, to City of Promise, to the United Way of Greater Charlottesville. Congrats on your day of caring. By the way, nicely done. That's how we keep doing our community-based work, and of course, this show. Don't forget, what is it? Charlottesville.gov/fire.
Yes.
And as Marky said, you can go knock on the door and ask for Lance. Tell him they sent you.
Yes. Come see me.
You're going to be getting so many knocks.
Yes.
For Lance and Marky, this is Price. We will see you all next week.
Bye.
Thank you.